Black excellence. I was born in 1970, and I think it was an iconic time to be born because I was born right after some of the great civil rights leaders had been assassinated. But there was still so much obvious and widespread Black excellence that I just grew up seeing it, hearing it, experiencing it pretty much almost on a daily basis. The people who were icons when I was a child are still iconic today. You know, Diana Ross, Cicely Tyson, James Earl Jones, Sidney Poitier. I mean, I could just list John Amos, Ruby Dee, Ossie Davis. There were just so many that I grew up watching on TV shows, in movies, in music, in dance. You know, you had Gregory Hines, and I just grew up watching them and knowing that they had come through discrimination, through segregation, through doors slammed in their faces, through being told they were less than, not good enough, not beautiful, not handsome, not acceptable. And they proved, in spite of all of the media, all of the brainwashing that America was trying to do to make it hard for them to succeed, in spite of segregation and blacklisting and, you know, McCarthy and his manhunt and everything, literally everything that could come against them did. They went against the odds. You know, people like Dick Gregory and, of course, Martin Luther King Jr. and, you know, Rosa Parks and Malcolm X and just all of these people. So I was seeing them. Some of them had, as I already said, been assassinated by this time, but their legacy was still so pervasive in my particular community. I can't speak for everybody's. I can only speak for the way I grew up, what I was exposed to in music. You know, my relatives were sitting around playing James Brown, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. And there was just this idea that even though I kept seeing the messages and hearing the messages and having the messages bombard me, that I was supposed to feel less than and insignificant and limited, the message I was getting from everywhere else besides the dominant culture was that I came from a people who overcame, and we knew that we had to be twice as good to be considered half as good. So we did that. And it's amazing that the group of people that was in power, the racist, bigoted, white supremacist group of people that were in power, saw our beauty and our power and our resilience and our character and our heart and our spirituality and all of the things that made us who we had been in Africa, who we had been all over the world. And so when they brought us here, they knew what they were bringing here. They knew that they were bringing many times the best of the best of the best of the world. And they were trying to tell us that we were the worst of the worst of the worst of the world. But there was that voice inside of us that was saying, you only have to fight this hard when you see the greatness of a people, when you see the strength and the resilience and the beauty and the talent and the skills and the natural inclination for excellence in a people. And I'll say the same thing about men and women. Now, many of the men today were not around when patriarchy was first brought, to villages and communities, along with oftentimes colonization. But a lot of them perpetuate the stereotypes and sayings and the negative images and words and the fear-mongering and manipulation that has made patriarchy work for about 8,000 years. But once again, the only reason you would go through all of that is if you actually were afraid of the group that you were trying to hold down. If you felt like if you don't hold this group down, you won't have any ability to compete with this group. You won't have any advantage over this group. This group won't need you. This group won't tolerate your misbehavior or your mistreatment. And so you have to force them, belittle and condemn and oppress and repress and suppress them to make them have to deal with it. And that's where we are today. We have I saw a meme that said, voting is like driving. If you want to go forward, pick D. If you want to go back, pick R. And I think that we see a lot of that right now with a lot of the statements that are coming out of the Republican Party about women and voting and women and their rights and women and what the party sees as the place of women, the place of minorities. And I think anybody who's threatened by a group and wants to keep them down needs to be left in the past. They don't belong in the future with any power. They need to be silenced by being ignored.